In this session, we're going to have a look at how you would clean up the organization information within CRMHaven. Now, by default, every client that we have on the CRM has potentially different organization information. I don't just mean the organization name as we've got displaying down here, but if we go into the record, you can see down on the right, halfway down the right hand side, we have an organization ID. Now by default, when a client is created, it's given a unique ID and the organization ID is set at the same number as we can see here. The reason why we have a separate and editable organization ID is it's possible to link together different clients who may work at the same organization. As a result, we can then go and change their organization ID to match the main company. And so in that circumstance, the organization ID of a client would no longer be their own client ID, but might match one in another record. Okay, so how do we work all this together? How do we clean up clients according to that? So if we click on the options menu down the bottom of the CRMHaven menu, we have the option here to clean clients. And near the right hand side we have a tab that says organization. We have a few choices here. I'm going to get it to work on all of the clients, of which we have about 800 on this system for demo. And we have a number of different options under here. One is to reset the organization ID to the client ID, just in case we've gone and changed things around and we want to reset back to where we were at the moment. If we click on preview, now this is one of the few things that clicking preview will actually get it to execute rather than just show a preview, but for consistency the preview button's used. If you click when this option shows and if you choose preview, it comes up and says, are you sure you want to reset the organization ID of the marked clients, well in fact this is for all clients actually, to the client ID. So that would reset the organization ID for each client back to its client ID. Now I'm going to say no. If we had gone yes, it would have made that change straight away, so just be aware of that. Next we have three ways that we can organize or link the clients, the people, to the organization themselves. The first one is related to linking the numbers. The second one is related to Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So the first one, what it's going to do is sort all the information, all of the data that we have based on the organization, the client organization, and then where we have two or more organizations together, it's going to give them a common organization ID. So let's choose that and go preview. So now I'm going to look up only those clients which have got a client organization. It's then going to sort that information, and then where it is actually updating the information, you can see that it's given them the same organization ID. Even though their client ID might be different, it's going to give them the same organization ID. So that links different companies together based on their organization ID. The last two relate to, as I said, to Dynamics CRM. What this allows us to do is, if we have clients on our system that are related to one another and have come out of Dynamics CRM, then they will have a unique Dynamics CRM account ID, which is their parent record. What this allows us to do is, if we have imported data in from an external source and so it doesn't have a unique ID, then it'll allow us to try and match the Dynamics account ID, the parent ID, based on the client organization name. So if there's an existing client already on the system that does have a unique Dynamics ID, then it will go off and match that one to this particular client that's been imported and doesn't have one. So let's choose that down here and we'll go preview. Now what happens is it'll put all of the data into the list here, There's 627 clients on our system that don't have a Dynamics ID, and if I scroll down to the bottom, what you can see is it's going through all of the names one after the other and looking up on the database to see if that particular client, if there is a client on the system which matches the same name and has a Dynamics account ID. If it does, then it's going to offer to use that account ID for that particular company. So you can see this company here appears 3 times, and they have the same unique account ID. When we go update, it would now put that information across, so that if we did put this information back into Dynamics, even if it was a new client, we'd have to have a new contact record in Dynamics, but at least we would know who their matching parent was. Okay, now I'm going to cancel out of this. You can hit Command full stop, or on PC and Linux it's Control full stop to stop that. And the final alternative, instead of looking up on the existing database to get the unique ID, is we can actually look up on a file. So now if I choose preview, I can go and choose a file. Now I know out on the desktop I have the same lookup file that we've used previously. Now it is going to come up with some errors. It does currently have a problem where we have a quote in the account name. It gets a little confused with that. We hope to fix that issue up. But what it's doing is it's looking up this database, which has got about, I think about 60 or 70,000 contacts in there, each with exported from Dynamics with their Dynamics account ID. It's now building an index table of that information, and then it's going to go through and offer to, or it's going to look up that index to see if any of our existing clients on the CRMHaven that are missing a Dynamics account ID have a matching organization in that database. So I'll just leave that for a little while. That will go off and find that information. Once it's gone and matched that and put in the Dynamics account ID, we can go update. It'll write that to the server. Next time when we go and do an export, we can ask it to export the data, including that Dynamics account ID and the Dynamics contact ID, and that way it'll we can input that information directly back into Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and it'll overwrite the existing data that's in there. So that way we can use CRMHaven as a means to extract, to clean up, and re-import data to and from Dynamics CRM, or just go one way if you want to just take the information out. Okay, so now what it's doing, now that that database has been built, I'll just clear that and close that down, is it's looking up, based on our data on the server, it's looking up that index table and finding all of the client organizations that do have a parent ID in that index table, so you can see all of those there. And so that would save us an enormous amount of time if we'd imported all of these clients in. It's done that matching up for 80 out of our clients of potentially hundreds. Okay, so that is how the organization cleanup operation works within CRMHaven. I hope you find it useful. Thank you and goodbye.